Welcome back to another exciting episode of Guru Talk. Today we have a return guest and another very special guest and very good close friend of ours, John Romano, joining Bruce Kneller and I today. So welcome, guys, to the pre-Olympia Guru Talk, as we call it.
Well, thanks for having me. Hey, just as I mentioned before, I just want to take a second to, for those of you who don't know, my good friend and business partner, Dr. Hector Lopez, passed away the day after Thanksgiving. I just want to dedicate this episode of the podcast to him in his memory. He was a gigantic man, irreplaceable in the industry, and I'm already missing him. Like literally last night, I reached for the phone to call him with an idea, and halfway through dialing, I realized that I can't do that. I'll never be able to do that anymore. So, Hector, if you're watching this one's for you, buddy.
What, Bruce? What did he? A lot of people have been asking you, how did he pass? What happened?
Hector had some long-term health issues and had to undergo surgery to try to correct it. And again, I'm speculating to the exact cause yet. The autopsy results aren't out, but it looked like he died from complications a couple of days after his surgery, and he died, very, very suddenly, tragically, and unexpectedly. So I'm still, recovering from the loss. It'll be a while. It'll be a long time, man. He was, and to see that picture, man, it's so hard for me. He was like, he literally represented the best of the industry. In an industry full of people that, maybe aren't always the best, he was really a bright, shining star, and he had a lot more work to do. But, those of us that are kind of...
What was his expertise, Bruce?
Name it. I mean, he was really good with R&D, brightest mind when it came to biochemistry, pharmacology, and whatnot. He was so at ease with marketing and sales and just talking to people. I mean, he could literally do it all. I mean, he is, I wouldn't say a big loss, but almost an irreplaceable loss for the industry.
Terrible. We'll send our condolences and prayers, of course, out to his family.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. His family will appreciate that. So will his friends.
Yep. Well, let's talk shop. We last time we had you on, Bruce, we talked the history of the supplement business.
Sure.
And a lot of people ask me, I want to know about drugs. You guys, I want more drug information. Now, John and I always discuss about the fact that the peptide industry is like the Wild West right now because there's no regulations. Everyone's writing scripts for it. People are selling it on websites, and they think it's legal. And it's really not, these peptides. But what's your take on the whole peptide industry?
I have a lot of take on the peptide issue, and I'm going to drop a huge bomb here. And a lot of people aren't going to believe it, okay? I love doing this. John, I love it. So, you know me, dude. I mean, I just love this throwing bombs and walking away.
And walking away, right?
Everybody else find it. So I have very, very good reason to believe that a lot of the growth hormone-related peptides, we'll call them the morellins, like tesamorelin, ipamorelin, sermorelin, are not what they're labeled. They're actually just plain ordinary growth hormone.
Really?
Yeah, really? No shit, huh?
That makes the most sense. I mean, come on. I mean, that's
Thank you, John.
You got it. Because Bruce and I.
Why do you think this, Bruce?
Wait, well, let me just preface this by them understanding. Bruce and I both had labs, okay? We know how to make shit, and we know what goes into making it. We know what raw materials cost, and we know what the final product looks like. And there is a lot of unscrupulous people running underground labs these days, making all kinds of shit from peptides and hormones to steroids and androgens, and some of them are really good, and some of them are not. The unscrupulous ones bank on the fact that the finished product in the bottle is identical to 7 other finished products in the bottle, and they just slap labels on whatever it is to not have to deal with the cost of high-priced raws and intricate manufacturing processes that don't need to be done if you can fake it. So.
But John, why would you put an expensive product like GH in a GH release?
It's not expensive. You're out of your mind, dude. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I apologize if that came off a little rough, but listen.
No, it didn't. No, I don't get offended by anything, Bruce. Go ahead.
I mean, it's been a while. I know it has. Okay. What if I told you in China now today.
Right.
Buy 100 IU box. You know, the little white boxes with, they call it red tops, blue tops, whatever tops, the label on it, right? I can buy 100 IU box of real growth hormone, 191 amino acid sequence growth hormone, $30.
What? Really? Wow.
And it's real, and it's good stuff. Right. So here's the thing, right? Growth hormone has its own section of the federal of the United States Code. You can be prosecuted for growth hormone. Right? Yeah.
I know. Dave knows that.
I know firsthand.
I'm really not digging at you. I just want the viewership to be aware that growth hormone occupies its own unique niche of FDA hatred. Okay.
Yeah.
But the peptides aren't. So the idea for a lot of these growth hormone peptides, not all the peptides, but the ones that are supposed to raise your own peptide levels, cause your own growth hormone release, right? The effect would be indistinguishable from a low to a medium dose of growth hormone, if you think about it, right? Why would I want to spend $500,000 or more trying to synthesize sermorelin or tesamorelin in China when I've already got growth hormone cheap and all I got to do is slap another label on it?
Right, but how come but Bruce, why are all the growth hormone out there fake? That I see guys testing it, it's coming back, there's nothing in it. Why sell fake GH if it's so cheap?
Can't get it. I mean, they still got to get it in the country. I mean, listen, no product still costs less than some product, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's
right?
true.
So that's the thing. But I have a really I wouldn't call it a hunch. The problem I have, and I've talked to an attorney about this, is I want to blow this open, right? It's just how do I test these things without, sort of implicating myself in doing something wrong or doing something wrong. So I'm trying to find a way to get somebody overseas to buy some of these things outside of the U.S., test it in a lab outside of the U.S., and show that some of these peptides that are being sold as growth hormone releasing hormones or ghrelin agonists and things like that are just simply mislabeled GH. Now, here's where it gets really interesting.
We can test them with the GH testing kits that I sell, from Bill Llewellyn. Those things test for GH. It's either in there or it's not. It's a pregnancy test.
But what happens if I buy sermorelin and it tests positive for GH? I'm in possession.
We know it's GH. There you go.
But I'm in possession of GH that I don't want to have.
Well, you don't tell anyone that you tested it personally.
Now, Bruce, what about the growth hormone peptides or IGF-1 or LR3? Won't those test positive for GH?
I don't think. No, they won't. Okay, they definitely won't. Okay, IGF-1 won't. IGF-R3 won't. But and none of the unique ones should. I mean, it's 191 amino acids. It's either there or it's not. Okay.
The IGF-1 is a smaller chain. So
now there are HGH fragments that are being sold that may test positive for that. But again, why would I go to all the trouble to synthesizing? I mean, so I've talked to people in China about this. Okay, and
So wait, hold on. Let me just stop you for a second. So what you're saying is that it's probably just as cheap to make GH as it is to make sermorelin. So why make
cheaper? Way less.
Yeah.
Way less. You got to remember, if you look at the history of Chinese GH, right? And let's be honest, unless you get a script and you get it out of a pharmacy and it's like Omnitrope or Humatrope or something like that, your stuff's coming probably from China or maybe Thailand. The only places I know that actually actively make it now that have a legit manufacturing. Okay. There was a Chinese scientist, no name, who worked for a big company in California, and he developed their growth hormone program. John's laughing. He goes, "Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about." And he got $1 because he was an employee. That's what you get. If you're an employee, you get a patent on something, you get $1 for it. Okay? They got mad. So maybe he took some back to China and started his own company with the permission.
Wow.
And again, realizing that the biggest customers were selling overseas, not even to the domestic Chinese market, because how many kids needed for pituitary dwarfism? How many AIDS patients do they have there, right? Stuff like that. He was marketing it, and he got into some trouble with, I guess, first the FDA leaned on the CSFDA, but the long story short is he went to prison for a while, and regardless of whether he went to prison or not, he had a legitimate pharmaceutical enterprise, a biotech enterprise that made real approved growth hormone. Now I believe there are two brands now. There's another brand out there. It's called Titropin, which is another legit brand of Chinese stuff. But I think that may have also been appropriated from the original stuff that came from ostensibly America. I don't know if this is fact. This is just, I want to be clear. This is rumor. It was the original culture, I believe it was made from mouse ovarian tumor cells, was developed in California, somehow smuggled out of the country to China. A legitimate pharmaceutical company was set up to make growth hormone using recombinant DNA technology there, and then it just kind of happened. Now,
hey, Bruce, I have a question. Hold on, let me stop for a second. How did they make a mistake? Because you remember when they first came out with growth hormone, Genentech came up with the 192 amino acid sequence, and then someone else figured out they made a mistake, and it was really 191.
Well, I mean, they made it wrong. I mean, they snipped the wrong pieces of RNA or DNA or whatever they use. There's basically two ways of making it. They either use E. coli or they use some kind of a tumor cell, some kind of immortal cell line that's not going to die. Okay. Right. So what you've done is you've taken these immortal cell lines, either E. coli or a mouse ovarian tumor cell, and you reprogram it to just keep spitting out copious amounts of 191 amino acid sequence that, and you just purify the rest of the stuff off of it. Okay. And the stuff out of China it's legit, real deal stuff. It would be chemically indistinguishable from the stuff that comes out of Lilly or.
That's what I tell people. I said GH is GH. It's not a better or worse version unless they're just not putting in there what they say they are, or it's getting heated up and denatured in some capacity. You know.
Well, yeah, that's a problem too. You know, transit, it can get denatured because of heat, or if it gets frozen or damaged, or it's not prepared right over there, or whatever. Okay, it's not purified correctly. You could have residual proteins that could be dangerous. The last thing you want to do is inject, tumor protein fragments into your not a good idea. But the real legit stuff that came in that, it looked like a Monopoly box almost. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Right, the white box.
Let's clarify something there. You mentioned refrigeration. Let's dispel this rumor once and for all. Does it need to be refrigerated pre-reconstitution?
No, but it does not need to be. It doesn't need to be refrigerated pre-constitution. It's probably got a shelf life of 6 months to 2 years after manufacture date if it's lyophilized correctly, like freeze dried. Okay, right. But once you put water is the most corrosive element in the entire universe. So once you reconstitute it with bacteriostatic water or anything, you're using your vitamin B12 shot to do it. Okay, the clock's ticking. You got to put it in the fridge, and it's probably only good for anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks at refrigeration temperature, and then the proteins really start to degrade. But I'm relatively sure that all the growth hormone releasing stuff, whether it's ghrelin related, whether it's a GRHP, whatever it is, it's this growth hormone, because growth hormone in mainland China, it's commoditized now. I mean, if you can make 1,000, you can make 1,000,000, right? And you get economies of scale. So why? I've talked to people over there about developing peptides for the dietary supplement realm. That's how I found this out. Okay, a couple of like small peptides I wanted to do. Okay, and they're like, yeah, it's about $500,000, to do a benchtop sit.
GH, Bruce, it's so much cheaper, and they're gonna get such better results too.
Well, that's what got me thinking, right? I'm thinking,
just change the label, like someone else we know did.
Here's another thing to know, that, in my opinion. This is opinion. I want to be very careful that everybody realizes this is not fact. It's opinion. I don't want to get sued, right, John? I would say anybody selling any of the peptides in America, okay, right, for research use only, not out of a pharmacy, but for research use. Right? If they say they're made in America, I think they're lying. They're all made in China, and they're all being smuggled in here illegally and whatnot. Okay, I know there's one big company that says our stuff's made in the USA. I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying it. He's got too many peptides listed, if you know what I mean. I mean, he's like he's got like the smorgasbord of peptides.
Now, and what's the machinery cost to make those? Right?
It's not even the machinery to to make the stuff. It's the purification process requires really, really expensive and educated people to do the chromatography separation to do that. In addition to that, to genetically alter organisms to kick out specific proteins. With CRISPR, it's a little easier these days. You probably guys have heard of CRISPR. They're using it for everything. But it's still a $500,000 US project to come up with a new.
But Bruce, don't they sell like a ready to do like how come they don't have like a ready to do GH kit, like where you can just buy it and you get a big vat and you just throw all the ingredients there, you mix it with like a big wooden spoon and it just starts cranking out GH.
You can, but the problem is, so you got to pull out all the residual garbage that's in there too, like the dead bacteria, the dead tumor cells, the other proteins.
Don't they have like some kind of syringe filter like John used to use when?
It's much more complicated.
I know. Extremely complicated.
The non-growth hormone stuff. Okay, so like now semaglutide, Ozempic, hugely popular. Okay.
Yes.
That's not growth hormone. That's really semaglutide.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's blowing up. So the BPC 157, it's the thymosin alpha, stuff like that, probably real. But just talking to people over there, the attitude and like, anytime I talk to anybody about peptides over there, like, why would you want to buy Sermorello when we could just sell you GH? And I'm like,
yeah,
because GH is illegal, and if I import it into America, I will be surrounded by federal agents. It's
right. So people are importing it as Sermorelin when it's actually GH, is what you're suggesting.
No, what they're doing is they're sending it in unlabeled bottles, and they're not saying anything about it, and they're identifying. You know what they do? They use the color of the top to code what it is. Okay, they send an unlabeled vial with a blue top, red top, white top, striped top, tiger top, whatever. Okay, and when you get over here, you know what it is. And one of the reasons for that is I don't believe that the little Gemini machine that Customs has, they use to identify stuff, can see through glass and can even see through, can see something as big as a peptide like that. I think there's probably a lot of noise with all the lyophilizing agents in there in the way that it's processed. It would be very difficult for them to detect that on scan at CPP. Now look, HSI could grab it, or the DEA could grab it and send it to a real analytical laboratory, and they could do it the old-fashioned slow way and probably identify it, within a reasonable time frame. But again, if you bring it in unlabeled, and I'm sure this is happening, and I would not recommend it, guys, because you're going to get in trouble. There's also another thing that people don't realize too. This is an important thing that you guys need to realize, and your viewers need to realize too. And I got to give Rick Collins credit for this, because Rick and I talked about this for a while. Okay. If you're a physician and you want to get into peptide therapy because you think it's good or you think it's easy money or whatever, okay, and you prescribe something that is not an approved drug in the United States for somebody, it's probably not covered under your malpractice insurance policy. You need to read the fine print, because if your malpractice insurance is probably limited to approved therapies in the United States or approved drugs. So if you if you use like ipamorelin or something that's some weird growth hormone fragment, CJC with DAC, it's not approved anywhere, right? And somebody gets hurt.
Even the healing peptides, BPC, right?
Even that, or BPC 157, TBT, whatever, okay, or melanotan, right? People use that for everything. Sure. You prescribe that, and somebody gets sick or hurt. When you get sued, the insurance company is like, "You're on your own, dude. You're going to have to pay that out." And the other issue is then it becomes not just an insurance problem, but I'm sure the Board of Medicine is going to just love to know that you've been doing this. So I think there's a real risk there, and that was something that Rick correctly. Rick's brilliant. That he is. Sure. We all know Rick really well. So I think that's a real problem, that way. But I would love to be able to have someone who isn't me buy some of these peptides from what it is? I get bombarded with this crap on Facebook every day. I get emails. And you want to buy peptides? No.
Bruce, but let me throw a scenario, and John, I want your opinion on this too. If I'm looking to not get in trouble, okay, let's say I have a peptide site and I don't import anything. I just sell empty bottles with lyophilized powder that is nothing. Am I liable for anything if people buy it?
I think
there's no active drug in there.
Rick will answer this question because he's answered it for me. Yeah. If you sell somebody a block of white powder and are selling it as cocaine, even though it's mannitol, there's no cocaine in it at all.
It's cocaine in the eyes of the law.
It's cocaine in the because you represented it as cocaine.
That's right.
So if you got nothing in the bottle, but you're selling it as a peptide, it doesn't matter if there's nothing in the bottle.
Now, all right, I'm glad you said that. And I wanted to get that out. So I don't understand why people sell fake stuff, and because it doesn't make sense. You're not going to get a lesser charge. It's not that expensive if you're buying it right from China anyway. And you should want to have customers that are actually happy with the results they're getting. So it always baffles me when I find out that people test some GH and there's nothing in there. I'm like, what's wrong with these people?
Simple. They want to be in business for 90 days. They want to make $100,000 and go out of business and do it again.
But they're not. But they'll keep selling. That's the stupid thing. They don't do it for. If they did it for 180 days, they'd get away with it. But no one does it for 180 days.
Maybe they don't really know. Maybe they're not testing their own stuff, right?
They get greedy.
But if you're buying from China, why would the Chinese fake it if it's so cheap?
I don't think the Chinese would fake it.
No.
I think they're not buying it from China. I think they're just having crap put into a container here.
I think the scammer.
You're talking about two different things: fake growth hormone versus fake peptides. Anybody in their right, anybody would make money in China or elsewhere selling GH as peptides, but that's a foregone conclusion. GH is way cheaper to make than any of those peptides.
Right.
But to sell fake GH, yeah, that's pretty stupid because you're still liable legally for the same thing.
Right.
And you're not you're not cutting any costs.
Right.
Well, I don't think they're thinking of that way. You're right. I mean, if I have an empty bottle and I say there's GH in it, and it's just air in it, it's GH. Okay. Right. If I put mannitol or sorbitol or talc in it, who cares? I mean, I'm on the hook. Certainly the feds are going to see it that way. But if my goal is just to make fast money for like a month, I mean, it's, then I don't have to.
Bruce, you said it. If it's $30 for 100 IUs of GH from China, and you could sell it for $250, which is still cheap, I'm sure. That's a lot of profit to make. Why put nothing in there? At least you might as well get
you know what, Dave? I'll tell you why. Something you missed. I don't got to sweat a package coming from China to the United States, right?
You're saying if they're purposely doing it fake.
So like I could just sit there in my basement and crank out empty vials full of a little powder in it, okay, and I don't have to worry about a controlled delivery from the nice folks from HSI.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, let's face it, that's a real threat too, right? I mean, the knock and talk kind of stuff. So I mean, that might be another reason why people are doing it. Just another thing to let you guys know. So a lot of the American or European real brands, they all switch to the pens, the GH pens now.
Yes.
Okay, they can charge a lot more money and sort of distinguish them. The Chinese have cloned them. I've seen them. Okay.
Oh, really?
The Chinese have like clones of these pens now. I mean, it's funny. You know what the best part about it is? John will get a kick out of it. Okay, right. The clones are never like 100%. They're always a little off. Okay, so it's like they're so stupid. Everything's in Chinglish, right? So
they're gonna cancel you for saying that, Bruce.
Well, my wife's Chinese, dude. I mean, come on. My kids are half Chinese, but I'm just be honest. I mean, I'm already canceled. Let's be honest.
I don't get
it. Listen, so I see like photos and they like spell stuff wrong in English, and I'm like, people buy this? Human, HUMAN, not HUMIN.
Yeah.
The worst part about it is it's plastic, so they've already made the dye, so they gotta.
Those are real though, because they came from China. That's why.
That's a good point. It's true, but I see a lot of of that. I had somebody, again, unsolicited. I don't know how I get on these damn email lists. Okay, or it's worse. I don't even know how. Like Facebook. How are these people allowed to advertise on Facebook? I say anything that's like conservative or Republican on Facebook, and I'm in Facebook prison for 30 days. Right? Yet these guys are selling growth hormone and peptides left and right, and that's okay. I guess
they're paying. You're not. That's why.
The Ayatollah has a Twitter account, and Donald Trump didn't. So this is the world we live in.
I mean, what does it say about Zuckerberg and his crew? Right? I mean, I don't know. It's just I'm just so I get these. I wish I got to figure out a way to censor or control these ads, but I'll be the first one to admit it. I see something like that, get your GH here or whatever. I click on it, it brings me to a website, and some of them are laughable, but some of them are pretty well done. Yeah. So I would say that again, unless you're getting it out of like CVS or Rite Aid or whatever, your stuff's probably being made in China. I know there is a few places in Asia outside of that that are making it, and I'm sure, although I haven't seen it, the Eastern Europeans probably have some. You know, John, the Eastern Europeans are huge in the PED market. You may know that too, Dave. That they probably have some sort of setup in Poland or Slovenia where they're banging out the stuff too. I don't know for sure.
It's so ironic that the Chinese are so controlling of their population, and they're so conservative, and they're so like, you can't do this, nothing is acceptable there. Yet they'll sell poison to the rest of the world. You know, it's fine to do that.
I'll give you the biggest example that infuriates me. Okay, caffeine is a controlled substance in China.
Wow, really?
You cannot sell synthetic caffeine. It's very difficult to sell it to the Chinese domestic market. Yet they'll make it
like an energy drink. You know energy drinks there?
Yeah, go look what's in a Red Bull.
What's in it?
Guarana extract. I mean, there's like no caffeine. Okay? Anything that's made for the mainland Chinese market is usually caffeine free.
Why is that? You would think that they would want better productivity from their people.
You have to ask President Xi. I don't know.
Well, here's a good example. TikTok. Okay, TikTok. The one they send to America is totally different than the one they use in China. The one they use in China, it's limited to 2 hours a day. It's only educational.
I was going to say, it's right, educational material.
Math, social studies, science. None of this dancing on your head with a fucking, thong in your teeth. It's absolutely completely different. Here, they send the version that poisons
propaganda here. They want to rot our brains. That's why.
Exactly. Well, so if they do that with the point being, if they do that with TikTok, think of it, they do that with everything. That's their MO.
Right? Yeah, I mean that's definitely their MO. I mean, honestly, I know it's supposed to be restricted, banned, whatever, but most of the fentanyl or fentanyl precursors originate from China. I mean, I know they go into Mexico and the cartels do their magic along the border, but I mean, without the Chinese, there really wouldn't be a fentanyl crisis.
Wow, didn't even know that.
If you got caught with any kind of opioid, synthetic or not, in China, you're going to be an organ donor. They're going to shoot you in the back. There's the domestic market, and then there's the foreign market, which I guess are out of.
They're smart. They're like, send all the poison out to the rest of the world, kill that, let them kill themselves, and we'll keep everything nice and controlled here. Everyone gets educated. People don't get exposed to negative stuff. There's no all the food is right here.
This is right out of Sun Tzu's Art of War. It's a textbook example of how to conquer your enemy without firing a shot.
Yeah,
and this is exactly what
we thought. But you know what? We did send McDonald's over there, so maybe we got our. Maybe they were pissed off about that.
They changed it.
Oh, they did, dude. Their McDonald's and KFC, nothing like ours. I'm telling you, you go in there, someone comes up to you with a tablet, they take your order, and they make your stuff fresh on the spot. It's not sitting under a heat lamp under grease.
Okay?
Really, the place is clean. Yeah, people there are like proud to mop the floors at McDonald's. I mean, seriously, go into McDonald's on the mainland and you will not recognize it. You'd be like, how come we get this kind of stuff in the States? Plus, they have a different menu, by the way. It's much healthier. Really.
Wow.
I mean, you can still buy garbage fries and an apple pie if you want, but they have, a much healthier alternative. So again,
sushi McRoll there, right?
They have a lot of noodle options and tofu and things like that. I mean, you can always buy something that supposedly is a hamburger, but again, I mean a little bit not really being nice there, but ostensibly it's meat. Okay.
What kind of meat you're not sure, but it is meat.
You don't even want to know how many of those run-ins I've had over there where I've been duped into eating. But it is what it is. But I would, if any of you viewers could come up with a clever way of us being able to test some of these peptides outside the United States to prove that they're not really peptides.
We got a million viewers. They'll do it inside the United States, Bruce. Our viewers, believe me, they don't care. They'll test it.
Guys, buy your peptides and run them through a GH detection kit. If Bill Llewellyn has a good one, try that. And let's see how many of them pop for GH instead of Sermorelin or CJC or
well, they're only going to say yes or no for GH. They're not going to say what it is.
Right, but if it says yes for GH, then Bruce is right. So if someone buys one of the kits off my website,
and I'm going to say, and Bruce will probably agree with me, that probably 80% of those results are going to come back as GH.
You know what the funny thing
is? Higher than that.
The funny thing is that the GH is fake, but the peptides are actually GH. Isn't that the irony?
Well, again, I mean, from a financial standpoint, it's not really all that ironic at all. It makes perfect sense. I mean, if you
but the GH should be GH too, but it's not. The GH is nothing, and the peptides are GH. It's crazy.
The GH is GH if you're dealing with the correct folks over there. Okay,
right.
And my people over there have told me that it's about $30 for little. They come in little white boxes, look like little bricks. There's like 10 vials in them. Okay, right. They're about $30. Obviously, if you buy more than that, the price would go down. But again, you still got to ship it here, and it is GH, and there's its own special section of hell in the Code of Federal Regulations for doing that. Okay, so you don't want to. You want to avoid that. The idea is, if I tell you it's a peptide, GH is a peptide. If I tell you it's a non-GH peptide, it's a something that's not covered by that section of the law, but it causes massive endogenous GH secretion, okay, then you may be thinking, I'm not going to get in trouble. What are they going to do? They're going to seize it and send me a pink sheet and tell me they're going to keep it, and maybe I'm on a list now, and they're not going to control delivery. But the risk is if you order, hexarelin, right, or something like that, and it's GH and it's unlabeled and they test it somehow and it is GH, they'll go after you for a surprisingly small amount of GH kits.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Can you put that lyophilized powder like in a big bag? Can it be packed like in a huge, like almost like a brick of cocaine would be? No.
To lyophilize powder, you need a machine. They're not that expensive. Okay.
What I'm saying is, can you send over like a Ziploc bag of GH and then have people kind of?
Oh yeah, we know somebody in the industry that did that. He got a 5-year suspended sentence. He owned one of the largest dietary ingredient import companies.
Okay? Oh, really?
Chinese guy. You can look him up. Not going to mention his name, but he got in trouble because he got a Ziploc bag full of lyophilized growth hormone sent over unlabeled, and it got tested. And he, of course, he didn't understand and blah blah blah. And he got a 5-year sentence and like $1 million fine. So that's right already.
How many IUs do you think would be in that one big Ziploc bag? Thousands?
Enough for like 3 or 4 guys at the Olympia, maybe. I don't know. So an IU of growth hormone is, I believe, I don't know.
3 IUs to 1 milligram.
Yeah, 3 IUs to 1 milligram. If it's 3.3 actually, I think it is. So I mean, just think of it. If you had a kilo of that, look at you could do the IU conversion. You would have. Yeah. Right. Again, if it's not preserved by lyophilization, I don't know how good
3,300 milligrams. Yeah.
Right. There's other
3,300 IUs rather. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a lot. I don't know how good it is. If it's not lyophilized, I don't know how stable it would be unless it's freeze dried. That preserves it. That little pellet does a lot. But it is remarkable. John's right, man. It's remarkably stable in its lyophilized form. Without refrigeration. Now, look, if it's on a slow boat at 120 degrees and it's being rocked back and forth, on the ocean, nothing going to survive that. But if it's sent over here by DHL and it clears and you get it in a week to 10 days, it could probably sit in your shelf for 6 to 12 months, maybe longer.
I recommend everyone puts it in the refrigerator. It can't hurt. You know what I mean?
No, I would. So I'll tell you one thing you shouldn't do. Don't put it in the freezer.
No, don't freeze GH. Never.
Yeah. But I know people that if a little cold is good, a lot cold is better, right? Well, no, that actually crystallizes stuff, and there's any kind of residual water in there. Now you've just definitely denatured the protein. So that's an issue. But
I know you got to go, Bruce. But I wanted to just get your opinion on the Aaron Singerman release from prison.
Shocked, surprised. I didn't believe it when I saw it. I watched your video. I think you and John pretty much nailed almost everything. Again, take some good advice here. Be very careful how I say things, and I'll parse my phrases a little bit. generally speaking, and this isn't just for Aaron, this is just, I would say, I'm not an attorney, so this is my layman's interpretation of it, is when you make a plea agreement, we've all been there, okay? You got to give, if you're going to make a deal, you got to give up everything you know. Then it's not like the government says, well, we'll give you a good plea if you give up half the shit you know. All of it, okay? So if he didn't give up everything he knew, okay, or if somebody doesn't give up everything they knew, I would think if they came forward later on and said, oh, by the way, I was holding back some stuff, that would be maybe cause to negate the plea agreement and the person could be resentenced. The other thing
or if they subsequently find out that you knew more.
Well, right, exactly. Like if you held back and were dishonest in your what do they call it? Your, I forget the term.
Proffer.
Yeah, proffer. Queen for a day, proffer. Okay.
Yep.
So if you're dishonest there, that's a problem. I think that, and I'm speculating here, so I don't know this for a fact. Okay. I would not have made that decision. I would have this is a deal I made, and I would have stuck it out. Okay. I think trying to say, I'm doing it for my kids is a half truth, because nobody wants to be in prison. Kids are not, right? How many people without kids wouldn't want to be able to be, right? I mean, yeah. So that's not really a legit excuse. I think anybody in that situation is going to find that, again, the documents are sealed. We don't know what they say, so it's all speculation. But I don't think he's out of prison per se. I just think the terms of his incarceration may be different now. Like a bracelet or an anklet at home, right? The BOP or the DOJ would have the option of putting anybody they want on home arrest, and that's considered you're in prison, right? So where you're confined and how you're confined for your sentence is up to those people. We don't know what these documents say. They may say nothing. It may be a medical release for all we know. He may have cancer and could be dying, and then maybe a compassionate release. Who knows? Okay, but the point is, if very speculative here. If it's out, I think it's with the hope that new cases are going to be created, okay? And this is just not advice for anybody. This is just my personal opinion on how. I don't know Aaron. I've met him twice. You guys know him much better than I do, okay? Dave knows I've always wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Everybody who's attacked this guy, okay, I've always said, let's wait and see, okay? I mean, and he has a lot of detractors. It might be because of jealousy. It might be because he's an asshole. Oh, both. I don't know. Okay. I don't really know the guy. But that said, I know I'll never pick up the phone for him if he calls. If he sends me an email, it's getting deleted unread. If he sends me a text, it's getting unread. I don't want to be around that. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong. I don't know that he is. I don't know for sure that he is trying to create new cases to keep himself out of I don't know that, and neither do you, and no one knows that. Okay, those documents are unsealed. But I think discretion is the better part of valor, and just to be prudent. I mean, I don't do any business with him now, and for him to call me out of the blue would seem
suspect.
Yeah, I would be a little bit like, why is this guy that I don't really know? What does he want? And you know what? To whose benefit, right? Who does this inure to? It's not going to help me. So again, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. I would say that again, speculating. The only reason they would let somebody out of a 5-year bid, I mean, with what was it, 5 or 4 years? With he done, I don't know how much, maybe 9 months on that. Yeah. And he got out would be if he was really sick and needed expensive chemotherapy that they don't want to pay for, because sometimes they'll do that too. They have to treat you, right?
Yeah.
But if they let you out, then you got to pay for it, right? Mm. Or you've agreed to do something to help them. And the problem, in my opinion, with doing something to help them is they own you forever.
Never ends.
Because it never ends. That 5-year sentence became a 20-year sentence, because the second you can't keep delivering, they probably have a right to put you back to finish the remainder of your sentence. So I don't know. Nobody knows if his sentence is suspended or eliminated, or he's just serving it in some other capacity. But and to be honest with you, it's really none of my business. And as long as it stays none of my business, live and let live. God bless you. I hope you're happy. I think that, again, I'm speculating here. there was some issues a couple of months ago or a month ago with, I think there was a bankruptcy petition against them that got settled out. Maybe that made him a little nervous, and he figured he needed to be out to. Again, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I'm totally speculating. It may be nothing. It may be completely innocent and harmless, and it might be a medical release or something else that the three of us just
not privy to. Yeah.
Not privy to, or we can't think of, that may be completely innocuous and innocent. But again, you guys can tell me what you think. I mean, if he called you tomorrow, and said, "Hey, I want to see if Redcon and Species could collaborate on something," what do you think, Dave? Is that it?
I already did my time. I don't want any involvement with anything. I have no interest in that.
You see what I'm saying, John? Right? Yeah. I mean, it just looked.
The problem, Bruce, is it looks very suspicious. They don't let people out for no reason, like you said, and I don't think Aaron's sick. So there's something that happened. Either he did already, or he might continue to do. And so for someone who's got too much to lose, it doesn't pay to to get involved with that at this point.
In your opinion,
put it this way, the fact that it's sealed,
in my opinion,
yeah. the 4 documents are sealed, right? Aaron doesn't want us to know. His attorney doesn't want us to know. The DOJ is okay with us not knowing, and so is the judge. Okay, well, why? Why don't they want us to know?
Don't they usually do that for the CI's protection?
Again, I'm not an attorney. I mean, I would think that makes sense. This is a layman. I can't tell you from a legal perspective, but just common sense would tell me, Occam's razor being what it is, it probably they're doing that. But the problem is, when you do that, you're almost giving it away. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Well, why would somebody not tell me what it is? Because they're
right. If he was sick, I mean, someone would say, he's sick. I mean, what's the big deal, right? I guess although maybe it's HIPAA laws, you can't say that. I don't know.
You guys mentioned the pardon. Okay, it's a federal crime. Only the president can pardon him. So if Joe Biden can pardon him, it's not a pardon. And there's a pardon list. And there is a method for petitioning for pardons, by the way. Right. And I don't know the success rate. It's pretty low, but people do get pardons for a variety of reasons. I mean, I haven't checked that list. He may be on it for all we know. But usually that's pretty publicized, and they try to make a big deal about somebody who got an unjust sentence and is rehabilitated.
Maybe they tricked Biden into pardoning him, and he didn't even remember, and then he pardoned him.
Right? They could have put something in front of him and said, "Sign it," and he just could have been like, "Where's my ice cream? Is it nap time yet?" And then find it. But, it's hard possible to say. I just think that it seems really a little bit weird. And I think your advice was really good. If I were him, I would lay low. I would not go to the Olympia. I wouldn't be on social media. I would take as much time as needed to try to rehabilitate my relationship with certain family members that with a relationship may have been damaged by my actions, and try to be. I'd be working on myself to try to be a better man, a better person, rather than trying to,
showboat.
Right, because some of the comments that have been in your video and also on Facebook, I'm not going to quote them. People can scroll through and read them at their leisure. They're spot on the money. Okay, the whole thing. Well, I'm doing it for my kids. Well, what about other people's kids that you may, if you're doing something, you could entangle into something, and it might be something really innocent too. The only point I disagree with John on, and then I'm going to cut it because I got to go, is this. Well, obviously they want to swim upstream. If Aaron's a shark, they want a whale. Okay, that's completely obvious. Assuming he's working in that capacity, we don't know that. Assuming he's doing that, they're like, what whale can you give us? It doesn't even have to be in the supplement industry. It could be finance or drugs or any kind of criminal enterprise. They're looking for bigger and better, but they're not going to ignore any smaller significant cases. So if he knows somebody who was doing something wrong, okay, and even though it's not a $25 million a year crime, it's $1 million a year crime or $100,000 a year crime, but it has the capacity to really be a public safety issue, then I think they're kind of obligated to act on that. So it's any.
I think it could get them off It could get them off his back for a couple months.
Again, but I want to reiterate: we don't know that he's doing anything wrong. As far as we know right now, there is a perfectly logical and rational explanation for this that us three guys who have all had our unfortunate experience in this realm can't think of. And
you think it's possible that maybe he gave them some information before he went in there, but maybe the case just hadn't been settled yet, and then if it got settled, and then they gave him the credit for it. I mean, that could be a possibility.
And I'm just wondering a lot, whatever happened to his state cases with the boating and car thing?
He might have to still deal with those now. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, but you think
I'm just saying, like, they reduced his sentence from 54 months to 36 months about 6 months ago, John, if you remember, right? So that, I mean, maybe he gave them some information that worked out and panned out while he was in there, so they reduced it. Maybe there was actually 2 cases that he was participating in. Obviously, the second case, if that was the case, would have been a much bigger case because now they completely, negated his sentence. So. It's possible he's not working for them anymore. He might have just given him something prior to going in. I'm not saying you shouldn't.
We don't know.
Anything's possible.
We don't really know anything. The only thing I could say is this. Okay, if you guys have ever read The Crucible, okay, movie with Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder, okay, at the end
I read the book. I didn't see the movie.
Yeah, the play by Arthur Miller, fantastic, amazing. I recommend it. Okay, at the end. The governor of Massachusetts at the time, who was a judge, was trying to get a man to admit to witchcraft who was not guilty. And, they were going to let him go. If you just sign this document, we can nail it to the church door that you're guilty and you can go live your life. It's fine. Or the alternative is you're going to hang. And he hung. And I think he did the right thing because you know why? You only get one name in life. And once you lose your name, it's really hard to get it back. We've all made mistakes, but you know what? The 3 of us have recovered pretty well and done pretty good for ourselves, okay, by walking the line and being repentant and whatnot. And, the cutting corners, eventually you learn that you can't do that, man. You just can't cut corners because if you do that, you're just going to be right back to where you started from. It's karmic, man. You got to learn that lesson. And, some people, I guess it takes a little longer to learn than others. And, somebody, I don't know, mentioned they think he's going to be like an industry pariah now. I don't think so. I think people in this industry have a really short memory, unfortunately. Yeah. And I think 3 months or 6 months from now, and to his credit, he is an endearing, nice guy. He's charming. Okay, he comes off really well, at least on social media. Pariah,
I meant that in a business sense. Like I don't think. My opinion would be if there is this situation with this person who got this kind of deal that raises the suspect questions that are probably ubiquitous in the minds of everyone, certainly not unrealistic. My position is that stigma is going to follow him, and people would, in my opinion, would shy away from doing business with him because of any potential. Look, even if you're doing everything above board and correct and squeaky clean, once the feds, if they get a hard on for you, anything goes at that point. So, whatever you're doing, they can twist into making it something bad, even though it wasn't. And you just don't want that following you around.
So again, I'm definitely pressed for time, but I want to make one last point, okay, and how they can twist stuff. John, you nailed it perfect. As usual, you got it, okay? So I know somebody that got caught up in something, okay? Somebody was setting them up, and they were going to meet, okay? The guy had no intention of doing anything illegal, but during the meeting, the guy who was setting him up said, on your way, stop at Starbucks, get 3 large macchiatos and 2 regular cups of coffee, okay? Later on, he would testify that 3 macchiatos meant 3 kilos of cocaine.
Oh, my God.
2 coffees were code word for bales of marijuana. He got a law enforcement officer who said, in my 20 years of experience, people do use code when they prevail. That was enough to get a warrant to get into his house. Okay, when they went into his house, they didn't find any drugs or anything, but they found an unlicensed handgun, that he wasn't supposed to possess. And that's a 5-year mandatory minimum.
Holy
he wasn't actively doing anything. He was doing something wrong. I mean, he had an unlicensed firearm, but he wasn't selling drugs or anything. This guy just thought that, well, he's kind of sketchy. He's probably doing something wrong, so I'll lie about it. And they were able to make a beef out of it. So that's the problem. That's why, I mean, sometimes they can create they're not creating crime because the gun was a crime, but anything they find during a search that's criminal is usable by them for the most part, right? Unless it's
no, it's got to be on. It's got to be on the list of stuff they're looking.
Yeah,
on
you see those lists, dude? Okay.
Well, it's supposed to be on the. It's supposed to be on the warrant, and the warrant always they stick in ambiguous terms that can mean just the lamp. It can mean anything. You know?
Exactly. That's the problem. But you know what? If you disagree with what this meant, go have a hearing, right? Go hire an attorney for 10 grand, and you can have the attorney argue that a lamp didn't mean the lamp means a light bulb and an electric cord, and not
exactly.
And you'll be arguing against a distinguished law enforcement guy with 20 years experience with an unimpeachable record that says, in my history, lamps really mean something different. So who are they going to believe? You, the defendant, who, let's face it, I mean, if you're a defendant, at a lot of people's mind, you're already guilty even if you're not, okay?
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, that's how it goes. So word to the wise, people can do what they want. I'm going to just, keep my distance. Again, I wouldn't expect a call from any of those guys. And I feel bad because, I mean, like Jay Manfrey, who was the corporate counsel down there, I really like Jay. I've known him for a long time.
Yeah, he worked for Rick.
Yeah, he worked for Rick. He's a really, really good guy. I don't know anybody else down there. I mean, I can only imagine he must be like, banging his head off his desk now. He's like, what did I get myself into? Legit or not, whether it's innocent or not, the optics are so screwy. So with that, guys, I'm going to sign off. It was great seeing you guys again. I don't talk to you beforehand. Have a safe and happy holiday season. All right.
All right. Thanks, Bruce, and thanks, John. And that's going to take us to the end of another episode of Guru Talk. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, put us a like in the comments below, and we'll see you again next time.